We have heard the joyful song, Jesus saved, and we're hiding all around. Jesus saved, and the news to every land, and the steeds across the way, onward is the Lord's command. Jesus saved.
One should discern two calls to leave the cities. The first is to create conditions for a normal living, and the second is to escape and save our own life. The first is settling not far from cities, for the sake of healthier living conditions and protecting children from the bad influences of corrupt towns, when we live in nature and work in cities. And the second is when we flee far in the time of persecution, after time of mercy and preaching of the gospel ceases, and in that other case we do not have our property because we are on the test of trust in God. Therefore when you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes.
The Lord has shown me repeatedly that it is contrary to the Bible to make any provision for our temporal wants in the time of trouble. I saw that if the saints had food laid up by them, or in the field in the time of trouble, when sword, famine, and pestilence are in the land, it would be taken from them by violent hands, and strangers would reap their fields. Then will be the time for us to trust wholly in God, and He will sustain us. I saw that our bread and water will be sure at that time, and that we shall not lack or suffer hunger, for God is able to spread a table for us in the wilderness. If necessary, He would send ravens to feed us, as He did to feed Elijah, or rain manna from heaven, as He did for the Israelites. Houses and lands will be of no use to the saints in the time of trouble, for they will then have to flee before infuriated mobs, and at that time their possessions cannot be disposed of to advance the cause of present truth. I was shown that it is the will of God that the saints should cut loose from every encumbrance before the time of trouble comes, and make a covenant with God through sacrifice. If they have their property on the altar, and earnestly inquire of God for duty, He will teach them when to dispose of these things. Then they will be free in the time of trouble, and have no clogs to weigh them down. I saw that if any held on to their property and did not inquire of the Lord as to their duty, He would not make duty known, and they would be permitted to keep their property, and in the time of trouble it would come up before them like a mountain to crush them, and they would try to dispose of it, but would not be able.
I saw that a time of trouble was before us when stern necessity will compel the people of God to live on bread and water, but I saw that God did not require His people to live so now. God commands that all who He has not specially called to labor in word and doctrine should labor with their hands that thing that is good and supply their own necessities, and have wherewith to bestow upon others. And I saw that it was the will of God that they should eat wholesome food to strengthen the system or temple of God. But in the time of trouble, none will labor with their hands. Their sufferings will be mental, and God will provide food for them. I have seen the danger attends every new phase of experience in the Church, because some hear things with such a wrong spirit. While some teachers may be strong and efficient in teaching in the lines of Bible doctrines, they will not all be men who have a knowledge of practical life and can advise perplexed minds with surety and safety. They do not discern the perplexing situation that must necessarily come to every family who shall make a change. Therefore let all be careful what they say. If they know not the mind of God in some matters, let them never speak from a guess or suppose so. If they know nothing definite, let them say so, and let the individual rely wholly upon God. Let there be much praying done, and even with fasting, that not one shall move in darkness, but move in the light as God is in the light. We may look for anything now to break forth outside and within our ranks, and there are minds undisciplined by the grace of the Holy Spirit, that have not practiced the words of Christ, and who do not understand the movings of the Spirit of God, who will follow a wrong course of action, because they do not follow Jesus fully. They follow impulse and their own imagination. Let there be nothing done in a disorderly manner, that there shall be a great loss or sacrifice made upon property because of ardent, impulsive speeches which stir up an enthusiasm which is not after the order of God, that the victory that was essential to be gained shall, for lack of level-headed moderation and proper contemplation and sound principle and purposes, be turned into a defeat. Let there be wise generalship in this matter, and all move under the guidance of a wise, unseen counselor, which is God. Elements that are human would struggle for the mastery, and there may be a work done that does not bear the signature of God.
Of course, there will be one moment also the opposite temptation. When the time of mercy ceases, Satan will make a false awakenings in the cities of those people who previously rejected the truth, but now he himself will burden them with guilt because of that earlier rejection and lead to false repentance, out of guilt and selfish fear for their soul. This will create the illusion that the time of mercy is still going on and that it is not the time to leave the cities. But to think that people are today already convinced of the truth today means that we do not distinguish the false awakenings of this time from the real ones that have not yet come. People will not be tempted to receive the mark of the beast on their hand or forehead until the light of the gospel has previously illuminated the world, because it is not right for anyone to be tempted by hard trials until they know the depth of truth adequate to the depths of darkness descending on the world. So, there is still a lot of events until the time of running away. Let us beware of the popular conspiracy theories that the world is now afraid of because they lead us to wage a spiritual struggle on the wrong place, and they also manipulate by arousing the motives of fallen human nature. For the Lord spoke thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, Do not say, a conspiracy, concerning all that this people call a conspiracy, nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. Refusing to take the chip in hand is no indication of courage or other virtue, but cowardice, rebellion, or hatred. People who fear the possibility of their movements being followed, certainly have neither a clear conscience nor a pure heart. Those who hate every authority will also easily refuse to receive the microchip. Only people who do not understand the spirit of the law, that the law rebukes the sins of the heart, can conclude that the chip is a mark of the beast. To receive the mark of the beast in hand means to consciously violate the law of God, while the mark in the forehead is a trait of the deceived who did not love the truth but the delusion that excuses their iniquity. One of the conspiracy theories claims that people, receiving the vaccine, will receive a microchip that will control them not only in movements but also in behavior. But people are already being manipulated and managed through the unconquered weaknesses of character. Whoever is selfish, carnal, frightened, arrogant or proud, he is already manipulated by circumstances and other people who satisfy or thwart his sinful desires. The advocates of the conspiracy theory claim that microchips are a tool for controlling human behavior, directs people to lead the spiritual struggle on the wrong place and to fight against the microchips instead of their sins. Satan has no need to give us a chip to rule over us. He who has won unconquered sin, and is convinced of the truth of the gospel, is already under the rule of Satan. Those who are already chipped by demons are most afraid of not receiving the chip on their hand. Their fear is an expression of hypocritical self-deception.
Satan works through the elements also to garner his harvest of unprepared souls. He has studied the secrets of the laboratories of nature, and he uses all his power to control the elements as far as God allows. When he was suffered to afflict Job, how quickly flocks and herds, servants, houses, children, were swept away, one trouble succeeding another as in a moment. It is God that shields his creatures and hedges them in from the power of the destroyer. But the Christian world have shown contempt for the law of Jehovah, and the Lord will do just what he has declared that he would. He will withdraw his blessings from the earth and remove his protecting care from those who are rebelling against his law and teaching and forcing others to do the same. Satan has control of all whom God does not especially guard. He will favor and prosper some in order to further his own designs, and he will bring trouble upon others and lead men to believe that it is God who is afflicting them. While appearing to the children of men as a great physician who can heal all their maladies, he will bring disease and disaster until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Even now he is at work. In accidents and calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagrations, in fierce tornadoes and terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, tidal waves, and earthquakes, in every place and in 1,000 forms, Satan is exercising his power. He sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous.
The crisis is fast approaching. The rapidly swelling figures show that the time for God's visitation has about come. Although loath to punish, nevertheless he will punish, and that speedily. Those who walk in the light will see signs of the approaching peril, but they are not to sit in quiet, unconcerned expectancy of the ruin, comforting themselves with the belief that God will shelter his people in the day of visitation. Far from it. At the time when the danger and depression of the church are greatest, the little company who are standing in the light will be sighing and crying for the abominations that are done in the land. But more especially will their prayers arise in behalf of the church because its members are doing after the manner of the world. The earnest prayers of this faithful few will not be in vain. When the Lord comes forth as an avenger, he will also come as a protector of all those who have preserved the faith in its purity and kept themselves unspotted from the world. It is at this time that God has promised to avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them.
If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates? But I trust that ye shall know that we are not reprobates.
Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Lighten mine eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest mine enemy say, I have prevailed against him. When wisdom entereth into thine heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee, to deliver thee from the way of the evil man, from the man that speaketh froward things, who leave the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice to do evil, and delight in the frowardness of the wicked, whose ways are crooked, and they froward in their paths.
An analysis of the causes of modern conspiracy theories and their negative function in the spiritual life of man can be found in the book entitled, Meeting the Coronavirus, Between Denial and Fear of Conspiracy, free to download from the following address. You can also download the book on the special significance of Ellen White's writings entitled, Importance of the True Church and the Spirit of Prophecy, from the following address.
We have heard the joyful song, Jesus saves, and we're hiding all around. Jesus saves, and the news to every land, and the steeds across the way, on the kids and on the men. Jesus saves.